Framework for learning and coding. It's not always easy to become a data scientist, even for the best of engineers. However, it's not too difficult for any student willing to work hard, and there are a few things you should know beforehand. This chapter takes a look at them, providing you a clear roadmap to succeed in data science and giving a framework to learn anything. This will also help you approach coding problems, especially during a job interview. 1. What you need to do. Set a target number of hours. Plan what you need to know/experience in order to write code. Pick an interesting dataset and perform a search. Acknowledge that the hardest is to start. Learn how to ask the right questions. 2. Problem statement. For every question, write the problem statement in plain English. This is also a good time to take a look at some technical examples of the problems that real companies encounter with the data science process. 3. Write some code. Make your code and run it. The interviewers will take a look at the code and answer the questions afterwards. Estimate how much time you will need for the data preparation. What should be an average number of people on your team for solving the problem? What can go wrong? Write down the tools that you will use to tackle the problem. 4. Prepare and evaluate your answers. Make sure to have valid solutions that are both concise and creative. Write down your responses to the questions. Make notes. Show engagement. 5. Review your answers. Refine your answers. Ask yourself why you didn't make use of some existing frameworks or tools. This will help you identify areas that you need to learn more about, and convince yourself to write up some material for future interviews. 6. Show your solution to the problem. As a bonus, prepare and show your solution to a third party who will help you get in touch with the organization that interviews candidates. Prepare a notebook with all of your solutions so you can discuss your solutions with interviewers. 7. Identify assumptions. Define the assumptions you think your interviewer has in the company and the tasks that you will be dealing with. Do not compromise on these assumptions, as it's a good way to separate yourself from the crowd. 8. Identify solutions. Identify the solution that meets your interviewer's expectations. Ask questions, be open and honest, try to understand your interviewer's perspective. 9. Build a model. Every question has a possible answer that fits the data you have. Invest your time in defining a robust solution, applying it, and prove it during an interview. The experience in programming is crucial for data science. You will have to execute the code and find bugs. The faster the better. If you are nervous, you can also ask questions in the interview about how to structure your code to fit with the structure of the company, and how to track what work you need to do for the upcoming weeks if there are multiple scientists make. Let's review 7 common mistakes which people make along the way. Thinking about those will help boost your career and learn much quicker. Trying to learn multiple tools at once. The result is that we become paralyzed with an inescapable set of tool-specific knowledge that we do not have any ability to leverage on a broad level. This is why so many programmers spend time learning and practicing new skills on a particular tool at a particular moment, when they have little or no ability to adapt quickly to new situations in the real world. A common analogy is a person who tries to learn a new sport by learning a lot of different skills in a short period of time. Instead of being able to play every sport in the world, he eventually learns that the sports he can play at all are all very different, and he ends up having very limited skill in many different sports. The key to building successful learning is to focus on developing one skill at a time, with the goal of learning to execute the skill effectively as soon as possible in the real world. Using existing code as a black box. This is a common pitfall for many people who begin learning to code. They think they have all the answers and are content to leave their solutions as black boxes, ready for them to figure out. However, when you start learning to code, you need to make decisions about your code. You need to know what your code is going to do, what it's going to look like, how you're going to test it, and so on. You should be making these decisions over time, with the guidance of a structured approach that helps you prioritize your choices, while also allowing you to learn as you go. That said, there are things you can do to help you learn more quickly. Don't use existing code unless you understand it well. Even if it seems like a good idea, you should avoid someone else's code unless you can be certain you know what you're doing. Of course, if you want to prototype something quickly, that's the fastest way to go, but projects in production stage should be well reviewed and understood. Use your own names for things. When you write code in a new project, you should have a good understanding of what's going on inside of other projects. Lacking consistency in studying. This one applies to everyone: data scientists, software engineers and students. It is easy to get distracted by news, social media, YouTube. We study for some time, then we give it a break for a week or the next 2 months. The rest of the time, we're looking at a ton of new stuff. This is not a big deal if you're just starting out, but it is if you're trying to become an effective data scientist. If you don't have a plan for how to move forward in your studies and become an effective data scientist, you are not going to be successful. The first is that it's too easy for beginners to give up. They're busy, so why bother? The second part is that they have their heads in the sand. They believe that data science isn't a real discipline because it's too hard. I'm going to argue that it isn't, and I'll give a specific and realistic set of tips on how to become an effective data scientist. All in all, you should remember a couple of things. Having a plan is a must to organize your time effectively. Be persistent in studying one thing at a time until you understand it. Don't give up too easily. Working on those things will allow you to grow as a data scientist and as a person. Not spending enough time on exploring and visualizing the data. If you're a data scientist, data is the key to understanding what is really going on. Data is the thing that helps you understand the context and the way things work. Data is the tool you use to get to the root cause of the problem. So the more data you have, the more you can understand your problems, to better solve them. You need to give yourself time to play with the data, visualize it in different ways, label it, make it nicer. There's an exciting part of visualization, which I call the beauty of visualization. The beauty of visualization is that it's a form of problem solving. If you think of visualizations as solving problems rather than finding information, you'll be in good company. Problem solving is one of the defining characteristics of visualizations. I believe that one of the primary advantages of visualization over other forms of problem solving is that it doesn't require us to make the final decision on which solution to choose. It allows us to see the whole picture, and thus be able to make a good decision based on the whole picture. And since there is no final decision, the final outcome is always best. Giving tools and libraries precedence over the business problem. As a data scientist, you should be practical. It's always nice and intellectually challenging to think about theoretical aspects of data science, but in the end your job is to understand data in order to solve a business problem. Data science requires a great deal of experience and a lot of technical knowledge. The data you are working with is not always easy to work with. If your goal is to build a new product, data is everything. It is literally the only tool that can be used to make this new product a success. You don't have time to develop an advanced framework or an advanced data modeling technique. You need to build your product. And this means you need to solve the business problem of your company. As a data scientist, you should be working with data every single day. The crucial question here is, how are we going to determine which of a billion possible combinations of data inputs will create discussions and competitions? It's natural that we tend to avoid discussions sometimes, because we don't feel confident in our solutions or simply because we don't want to be challenged. But shying away from them is a big mistake as it leads to stagnation. You won't learn anyway this way. In order to learn, you need to go out of your comfort zone. This means taking risks and making a lot of mistakes, but that also means making mistakes that work. It means you have to be in the uncomfortable zone and take risks in order to learn. You can't just run away from problems and don't take the time to reflect on what you did wrong. That's what you are going to have to do in order to learn how to build working projects. Don't wait to get some feedback on what you did, ask for it yourself. You might be surprised how receptive the feedback is. You'll be surprised by how often people have questions about what you did or how to do it. Give yourself some time to practice. Practice is an amazing tool for any programmer. You'll notice you become more comfortable as you start doing more and more. Don't worry too much about being perfect. Don't sweat the details. Just get it done the first time. If you screw up on the first time, you can correct it and get back to where you were before. In your first few times doing anything, you'll be a bit nervous. That's normal. Keep calm and carry on. Not working on communication skills. Solving a problem is one thing, but communicating it to the rest of the team is another. You need to work on your communication skills to convince others and explain to them what you've done and how does that fit the whole process. There are a number of ways to achieve this, each with its pros and cons. One of the most effective ways is to have a dedicated communication channel for the team. For example, a Slack channel can be useful to communicate what your plan is for the project. You may even be able to use a dedicated channel on your workstation so everyone can talk to each other in private, saving them from the hassle of asking others for their input. Many teams also do stand-ups, quick meetups each day or each week to explain their results to each other. These can be very helpful in keeping people on track in a competitive environment. But even without the stand-up, people are more than welcome to come in on any time to ask questions and ask for assistance. Being helpful to others is one of the best way to learn more yourself. Conclusion. Every company values data science. It is highly unlikely that they will hire someone who doesn't have sufficient skills. This can be a negative point in case you go into the company already believing that you are the best data scientist for that company. It's worth bearing in mind, however, that some teams don't really care about nor find great candidates. Be careful. Good company will help you grow. Bad company will make you lose your motivation.